Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and regular viewers might be wondering why I'm not currently in my game room right now. Well, we're going through a massive home repair job at the moment, so until that's done, I'm living in a chaotic world of boxes. So hopefully it won't take too long before everything returns to normal. Famous last words. But today we're going to be taking a trip in the Call of Cthulhu scenario, Unland. Written by Scott Dorward and published by Stygian Fox in 2018's Fear's Sharp Little Needles, a collection of 26 modern-day adventures for mature gamers. The scenario itself is pretty short, just coming in at 5 pages, and it's suitable for a single 4-hour session, but it took my players closer to 8 in order to complete it, so results may vary. It features an abandoned amusement park and focuses on regret, the lies we tell, and the damages that causes. And it's pretty unconventional for a Call of Cthulhu adventure, featuring some new and very interesting creatures. Now, due to its unusual nature, it's become a pretty popular adventure, something that people have converted over to Kult Divinity Lost, which that can be done very easily, which that's the system that we used when we played this adventure, and I'll show you how I did that. So what I'm going to do is offer my tips, my criticisms, and my suggestions as a game master who has successfully run this adventure. And I'm Jack the NPC. I'm here to give it to you from a player's side of things as I get to explore an abandoned amusement park with a tragic past, which, why in the hell would I want to do something like that? That sounds like the last place I should want to go. Nothing good can come from a place like that. But before we go any further, I must warn you that there will be spoilers. So any players in the audience, please stop here. Send your game masters this way to see about running Unland for you. But if you keep going and you spoil yourself, your guilt will haunt you for the rest of your life. Okay, Game Masters, let's get this thing started. The backstory is that 18 years ago, it was discovered that an employee at the Funland amusement park was a pedophile who was using the park to stalk and murder his victims. A woman named Ina Matthews handled Funland's public relations, and it was her job to deflect any responsibility away from the park's owners. So Ina spun this web of lies, and while the park did eventually close down, the owners were able to dodge any legal or financial repercussions because of the work that she did. The module says that researching the park's history and Ina Matthews, they can get some quotes, and that's very easily done online. Now, for my game, I decided to make a couple article handouts showing all this, so any keepers out there wishing to use my handouts or any of the other material that I made for this game, you can get those at the download link below in the video description, so go ahead, knock yourself out and use those. After the scandal, and plagued with the guilt of all these lies that she told, Ina Matthews began worshipping an entity known as the Phantom Truth, which I believe is a new entity that's just unique for this adventure. So she turned the abandoned Funland amusement park into a temple to the Phantom Truth, and using it as a way to help people by luring them in here. And the only way to escape this amusement park is by abandoning your lies and surrendering those over to the Phantom Truth, kind of giving yourself over to the truth. Now, many of her victims have found this to be pretty beneficial, so once they've left the park, they've then turned around and they've lured their friends and their family here as a kind of a way that they too can be cleansed and kind of let go of the past. The module offers us several hooks as to why the player characters are here. Now, they might be searching for a missing friend, they might be lured here by a friend and former victim that's wanting them to be healed, or they might be hired by a former victim who needs them to retrieve something that they lost in the park, but they can't articulate or remember exactly what it was that they lost there. Or they might have been just helped come out and clean the abandoned amusement park of any vagrants before the land is redeveloped for new construction. Whoa. So we could have been working for some real estate company that went out to the property to tell a bunch of squatters to get the fuck out, just like in the Scott Brown incident? That sounds way cooler than the plot that we used. Why didn't we go with that one instead? For my game, I worked this adventure into our existing campaign, where the player characters were searching for their missing friend, Betty Bright. And, she was suffering from a lot of emotional damage that was caused by an incident that they shared in their collective backstory. And Betty had gone through a lot of different therapy and self-help gurus and self-medication in order to get past the trauma that she had endured. So when my group was searching out her apartment and trying to figure out where it was that she had gone, they found an email from Ina Matthews, and she had set herself up as this sort of self-help expert who was offering to help Betty heal for only a single session, and she would be cured if, whatever was kind of dragging her down, this trauma from her past.
Holy crap, guys, I just found out that our friend Betty is missing. And get this, she got herself involved in one of those self-help scams that's taken place out at an old amusement park outside of town. And not only that, instead of it being one of those scams that takes place at a series of retreats and each of those costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and bleeding their victims dry, nah, this one says that it only needs one weekend with her and the price for that is $300. And the price on that is negotiable. The only thing worse than a scam artist is a cut-rate scam artist. But we gotta find out what happened to her. We gotta get to the bottom of this. Hold on, Betty. We're coming to save you.
The overgrown drive leading to the park is half a mile long, and I went ahead and I described this as being multiple lanes each way, with these rotting and vandalized signs that were advertising the various attractions at the park. Now, the park is permanently foggy, so as they're going deeper and deeper toward it, this mist is getting thicker and thicker, and these signs and everything are kind of emerging out of this gray haze. Now, the parking lot has several abandoned and rusting cars there, and if the player characters are here looking for a specific person, some NPC, they should be able to quickly find that person's car here.
You know, guys, I think I know how Ina can claim that people are cured after a single session here. Because after one, ain't nobody gonna come back to this creepy-ass place.
The module gives us this map of the park. Now, for those of you who don't have a PDF copy of the adventure, Stygian Fox offers Counterfeit Identities, which is a free collection of all the handouts and maps that appear in Fear's Sharp Little Needles, including a player map version, so you can download that off of DriveThruRPG for totally free. Now, a couple things though with this map. First, the roller coaster is said to circle along the fence line, and it does end up becoming the barrier that prevents escape from the park, but at the entrance it really curves very far inward, almost all the way to the Hall of Mirrors, so I modified the map just to have the roller coaster come in closer to the gate. Next, I updated the player map version to look like a "You Are Here" sign that you might be found around the park at several locations, and it gives the key to all the different locations, but also shows all the collapsed concession stands, and the bridge is still showing intact because this was just a map that's found on site of what the place looked like when it was intact. Again, if you wanted a copy of my maps and handouts, there is a link in the video description below. As the characters step inside, describe how they're passing beneath this kind of a lattice work of supports for this roller coaster. I also added that just inside, once they had passed beyond that, they then came face to face with this painted sign that was hanging above a large mirror, and it told the player characters to reflect on the lies that they told and how that will set them free.
Set us free? What kind of crap is that? I can leave any time that I want. The entrance is just right by... Hey, guys? Where did the entrance go?
So what's going on here is the Phantom of Truth has put the park inside some sort of pocket dimension. So once the characters enter it, they're going to be unable to escape past this lattice work of the roller coaster struts, and it's now this kind of an impassable cage that's holding them in. And the only means of escaping is by gazing into one of these mirrors for at least 30 seconds while thinking on all the lies that have shaped their lives. And on a successful POW check, darkness flows from the investigator and into this mirror, creating sort of a gray, shadowy creature that sort of kind of resembles the investigator that's now trapped inside this glass, and its joints all move the wrong way. So it's this monster, but something about it kind of resembles the player character that it came from. Now, this of course is going to invoke a bit of a sanity loss as well as a permanent loss of POW, as part of themselves, part of their essence has been torn away. The player also has to roll a D4 for one of several effects that can happen, such as amnesia or the inability to lie, but on the bright side, the character can now see the path that leads out of this park, and they can now go unburdened out into the world, free of all the lies that they've told.
Well, screw that. I'm made of 50% lies and 30% half-truths, and I can afford to lose none of that. I guess I'm just gonna live here for the rest of my life.
Then that is going to take a really long time. You see, while you're trapped inside this pocket dimension, player characters are unable to die. And you might be temporarily incapacitated for a few rounds, but you regenerate and heal at 1 hit point a minute. So this does not apply to sanity damage, but physical damage, the player characters don't need to worry about, enduring any sort of physical harm or any sort of permanent physical injuries that they might have. So this also allows for game masters to give some really gory wound descriptions here. Like if someone was to swing an axe at the player character, and the player character, might lift their hand up to defend themselves, and the axe might just kind of lop off all their fingers, and then after a few minutes later, you can have the fingers all grow back. But the first time that you do this, before the players figure out that they can regenerate while they're here, it can be pretty dramatic, as they think that, their characters might have just been permanently maimed by some of these injuries. Now, to aid people unburdening themselves of all the lies that they've told and all the damage that's caused, Ina Matthews has placed mirrors all over the place at this park. Now, these might be huge funhouse mirrors that she's kind of taken out of the House of Mirrors, or they might be bathroom mirrors, or just random mirrors that she's picked up at yard sales and the like. And because she has been doing this for quite a while now, most of the mirrors around the park contain one or two remnants inside of them, banging on the glass and desperate to escape.
Okay, so I'm pretty conflicted here. On one hand is my just innate desire to smash a bunch of mirrors for the hell of it, but also remove the threat of them and maybe let those shattered souls out to whatever their final resting place is. On the other hand, what happens if we smash those mirrors and those things escape them?
If, or more likely when, a mirror gets broken, any freed creatures that are referred to as remnants are going to try to grab the closest person and merge with them. Now, this requires an opposed POW save, and if successful, the remnant, which is made of some person's worst memories based off of their lies, merges with the player character, and that's going to cost them sanity as well as a d4 of other effects. And while these memories can't be distinguished from the player character's own, they've kind of merged themselves in so deeply, the player character is going to be unable to put these into a mirror themselves, as if they were sacrificing them, because these aren't actually their own memories.
Now for our game, whenever a character did make this saving throw against a remnant that was trying to push its way inside their mind and try to merge their memories with the player character could still sense what those memories were, kind of a dark first-person narrative trying to worm its way inside their brain, something tragic and horrible, something that involved lies. Now, these could also be lies that we tell ourselves, when we're trying to turn a blind eye to something and trying to ignore all the obvious warning signs and say that that's not true, but we all know what's going on there.
Because no one can die inside the park, this holds true for the remnants as well, and the only way to permanently deal with them is by throwing or shoving them into sort of a nearby mirror, kind of re-trapping them inside the glass. Now, for my game, I had it when they physically killed a remnant just through physical damage. It kind of melted into sort of this kind of puddle of liquidy smoke that was on the ground and kind of looked like it was dead for a while. But then after a minute or two, all of a sudden this kind of arm came reaching out of it and grabbed the edge, then another arm, and it kind of pulled itself free of this puddle that was made out of its own essence. Now, there's also a couple regular people that are trapped inside this park as well. One is paranoid and hostile and tries attacking the player characters with a pole once he sees them. And he's found this pole in one of the buildings, but for my game, I went ahead and changed that to a fire axe that he had found because I just found that to be kind of a lot more interesting. Another is an NPC woman who tried hanging herself because she didn't want to give up any part of herself to get out of here, so she's hung herself from one of the attractions, but because she's unable to die, she's been dying and returning over and over again over the course of this past week, so her sanity is pretty much just shot all to hell. Now, I also had it where Ina Matthews had shown up while she was dangling there and then had placed a mirror directly in front of her as kind of a way she might be able to escape. It didn't help cut her down or anything, but stuck a mirror there as a way to be helpful. Now, escaping this park requires that you find Ina Matthews and her shrine in the Tunnel of Love. Now, they can be found by just exploring the whole park and just looking inside all the other buildings, or player characters might be able to talk with one of the NPCs and they can learn about it from them, or maybe they might see Ina Matthews as she's kind of wandering the park and they could follow her back there. Now, Ina has no fear whatsoever of the player characters. She is perfectly aware that she cannot die here, and she truly believes that what she's doing is helping people. Now, she isn't going to force anyone to look into a mirror or anything where they kind of forces them where they have to do it, because she feels that the sacrifice must be given willingly, but at the same time, she isn't going to show any of the player characters the way out. She's just going to say how, they have the means to escape within themselves and they're not really trapped here. They just need to let go of their lies and the truth will set them free. Inside the Tunnel of Love, they're going to find this altar, which is like this giant marionette that's within this 10 by 10 cube cage of all these strings and marionette controls that are kind of holding holding it in place. Now, destroying this requires either doing a certain amount of damage to it to kind of destroy all the strings in the marionette puppet itself, or a player character just making a mechanical repair roll, and that's going to take them a few rounds to just completely take this thing apart. But every round that they're in the presence of this icon, it's going to cost them more and more sanity, meaning that while it's not exactly fighting them back, it might crush their minds before they can manage to finish this thing off.
And the Tunnel of Love is so wet and so gross that trying to set that thing on fire, favorite tactic for Call of Cthulhu players, is not going to work here. Unless, of course, we were to make an even bigger fire.
Once the icon is destroyed, the fog lifts and the characters can just escape the park. Now, it doesn't say what happens to the remnants that have been trapped inside all the glass here, but I had it where they vanished once the fog went away, and now there are just a bunch of regular mirrors all over the place. Now, Ina Matthews, she might fight, she might flee and just set up somewhere else, and she might come back as a returned villain later on. Overall, we had a lot of fun with this scenario. It can work as a simple, just little one-shot with the characters just arriving at the park. You can make that just the opening scene, or it can be expanded and worked into a campaign the way we did it. But what I really enjoyed about this adventure is how different it is than other Call of Cthulhu scenarios, and my players who have played tons of Call of Cthulhu and other horror adventures, it really kept them guessing as far as, what was going on and how they're supposed to get out of this.
Yeah, but we didn't play this with Call of Cthulhu. We played this with Kult Divinity Lost, so you want to share you went about doing that?
Okay, so as I said earlier, Unland has become pretty popular as a cult adventure. In fact, Scott Dorward pointed out to me to go to Sue Savage, who's run this several times with Cult, in order for me to get some pointers before I ran it for my group. So huge thank you to Sue for her advice. That really did help me out. Now, mechanics-wise, I made a conversion sheet for the remnants, both for making one or having one merge with a player character. For the Phantom of Truth, I changed it to be an Isham, an angel of Malkuth, and it was this sort of cage where there was these long spikes of bone that had grown up from the floor, and they were piercing its arms and kind of holding it in place like a marionette. And then there were these mirrors that were kind of set out before it, and this angel could look into any of these mirrors and see out of any of the mirrors in the park. So the angel herself, she was very weak and she couldn't move until the player characters had done a certain amount of damage to this bone cage that was holding her in, and it was actually what was kind of keeping the park inside this pocket dimension. So the cage itself was actually what was doing it. So once the cage was gone, she might lash out at them in frustration, maybe try to give one of the player characters a mark of Malkuth, but then she's just going to try to escape. Now, the final tip that I want to give for this adventure, and this really has to do with names. Many of the rides in the module have British names, which can be different than the American names for the same rides, and some players out there might not know any of the names for some of the carnival rides that you could have. So, such as things with chairplanes, waltzers, dodgems. So, keepers, best to have some pictures that you've just made of what these rides are and give those out to your players just to be sure that everybody's on the same page as far as what it is that their characters are looking at. You can find the adventure in Fear's Sharp Little Needles, available on DriveThruRPG, and this is the second adventure that I've reviewed from this collection, and it is definitely worth checking out. Links below.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see some more of our stuff, such as game reviews, RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. Till next time, gamers, you have a great day. This adventure took place out at an amusement park, and the last Call of Cthulhu adventure we covered took place at a carnival, which is the same thing as an amusement park, just transient and hadn't figured out a good place to set its roots and live at for a while. So I'm going to go ahead and put those in the same category as well as other repeat offenders out there, such as will readings, remote cabins out in the woods, art exhibits, museum galleries, cruise ships, archaeological dig sites, and the entire state of Maine as places that player characters should avoid at all costs. Nothing good has ever come from those places.